Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 702 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened across NXT and AEW over the last week. Regarding NXT, we have the fallout from Vengeance Day, that brand's first premium live event of 2025. With AEW, we have full coverage of AEW Grand Slam Australia and the Dynamite coming out of that, building to AEW Revolution. So yes, as usual, we have a loaded show of performance-enhancing audio right ahead for your ear holes. On the way in, allow me to remind you to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get all the audio episodes in full on YouTube, you also get video clips from past interviews and new interviews coming in 2025. Just posted a couple minutes ago, actually, a new video clip of Becky Lynch. So make sure you check us out on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can get it on those social media accounts. So we have a lot to talk about today. NXT, AEW, and we're going to get into all of that.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
Really one item each from WWE and AEW this week. WWE announced a couple days ago it's going to be introducing WWE ID titles for the independent wrestlers that it is assigned to presumably compete over while working across the country on the independent scene. There's 2 points to address on this, and honestly, it's so frustrating to even have to say or explain these things, but I feel like with the online discourse over every trivial matter these days, and we have an even more trivial one we're going to discuss in a moment, but I feel like this ridiculous online discourse just needs to be covered because certain journalists like to twist information and not provide any shred of context to it. So with regard to these WWE ID titles, if you are someone who is okay with WWE ID as a concept, you should be okay with these. If you don't like WWE ID as a concept, then it's understandable to not like these either. Simple as that. The WWE ID program has its positives and negatives. I've spoken with independent promoters who say attendance and business has increased when they get to advertise these talents. Presumably, being able to promote a title match with a WWE branding would help similarly. From a booking standpoint, independent wrestlers who are champions in other promotions historically need to be careful about how they're booked elsewhere. This is not any different than that. On the other hand, WWE now having independent titles could be seen as lessening the value of holding other such championships, and that is a legitimate concern. But more important than that is this absurd title counting that is going on when it comes to WWE in particular, but really every promotion. The WWE ID titles, just like the Speed titles, they're not a part of Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. They will not visually be on WWE television, and they will not be defended on those shows. They will not be listed on the WWE Superstar page. It is a separate promotional venture for the company. To lump everything that a company does into a single bucket is not accepting that it is structured differently, WWE, from other promotions. WWE has 3 TV brands, a 4th on its way, by the way, with Evolve. Each of them has separate rosters with separate titles for each show. AEW has 2 brands, ideally with separate titles for each show, but the problem with AEW that we criticized for so long was all the ROH titles were regularly being on AEW TV. There was a time when there were multiple tag team trios, men's and women's titles being defended across Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision on a weekly basis. Tony Khan listened to criticisms. He's tailed that back significantly. However, some of those titles do still appear, namely the ROH Championship. It's more difficult to parse it with AEW because the trios titles will kind of show up when Dustin Rhodes is on TV, but otherwise they're not mentioned. So really for me, the ROH title is the only Ring of Honor title that is currently utilized on AEW TV, which has completely changed the calculus in a massively positive way for them. But here is the actual breakdown. WWE has 17 TV championships across 3 shows, and those shows last for 7.5 hours. So that's 5.7 titles per brand and 2.3 per hour. AEW, including the ROH men's titles since it's on TV weekly, has 9 TV champions across 2 shows and 4 hours. But it's all one brand. So it's 9 for one brand compared to 5.7 per brand for WWE and 2.3 per hour, which is exactly 2.3 per hour for WWE. And this is with WWE having added the 2 women's mid-card titles recently. Now, are there far too many titles in WWE? Yes, there are. Are there far too many titles in AEW? Also, yes, there are. But I will say, as far as WWE is concerned, is the roster and brand splits make it far more palatable. They don't have 5 men's singles championships all available to the same group of talent. That's the differentiation between the two. But more important than any of that is as long as there's not too many titles on TV at a given time, it does not matter. And right now, even with AEW, it does not feel that way because they're not shoving all those ROH titles down our throats. If WWE started taking all the NXT champions and they had them on Raw and SmackDown every single week and they were doing title defenses and all that, then that would be problematic. But that's not what's happening. And people need to understand when a speed title gets introduced and it's only seen on Twitter, and when a WWE title gets introduced, WWE ID, title gets introduced, and it's only seen on the independents, not even on television or streaming or anything, that is not problematic for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. So I hope that clarifies the situation for everyone. The other ridiculous discourse item this week was the ring used for AEW Grand Slam Australia. Like all of you, when initially tuning in, I immediately noticed it was smaller. And then I moved on with my life and enjoyed the show. Apparently, Tony made the decision, a wise business decision, by the way, to borrow a ring from a local promotion rather than ship AEW's ring halfway around the world. I see that as like a cool technical note that we now know and nothing more. Smart way to save money. Apparently, a handful of morons on social media decided to deride AEW about this. And what one should do with morons is pay them no mind. Instead, even more annoying than the actual discourse about the ring, is that AEW saw this as an opportunity to extend their persecution complex. Dozens of AEW folks, from backstage people to actual talent, jumped on Twitter defending the move to try to paint the company as a victim of online hate or something. I legitimately saw more discourse over the weekend about the ring from people associated with AEW than I did from the morons who took issue with it in the first place. They made it 100 times of a bigger deal simply to garner sympathy and whatever else than folks did just being haters, which is stupid in its own right. People continue to fall for this every time AEW chooses to put itself in that position. I will say, credit to Tony for not getting involved himself. He's definitely matured. His online presence is much better. He deserves a shout for that. But every time someone says anything minimally critical about AEW, the number of people that come to their defense, man, that is literally the definition of a persecution complex. Okay, let's get into talking about actual wrestling. No more bullshit. Shout out to Paul White here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast.
It's all about the fire.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And please don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Don't just get extra content for yourself. Please help financially support the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. With all that said, let's get into our breakdowns of NXT and AEW. We're going to start with NXT, handle AEW second. There will be timestamps in the episode description, as is always the case, so you can jump around if you desire. As always, I hope you listen to the entire show. Kicking off with NXT, we're going to take a fast second look at NXT Vengeance Day match by match, but I promise you it's extremely brief because this is a rare occasion where I watched a premium live event and I felt like I just nailed my initial takes and I didn't miss much, where I went back to rewatch and had to add a lot of context or perhaps even switch an opinion. Women's Championship, Julia, Bayley, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade. I originally gave this 3.75 stars, B+. This is the only match grade I'm changing the entire night, moving it up to 4 stars and A-. I let the Julia Bayley flubs impact my enjoyment and grade of this match way too much. It was only a couple brief moments. The rest of the match was fantastic. It was indeed excellent bell to bell. Just top-notch work from all 4 women. The finish was executed incredibly well. And just like I said on the instant analysis, impressed with Cora Jade and how she was able to kind of level up with the other 3 women in this bout. Tag Team Championship for Axiom, Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura, 4.25 stars and an A, sticking with that. The finish of this match was even better than I remember. There was a concerted plan by Fraxium on how to take out Briggs and then finish Inamura, and that was shown through their body language. It actually reminded me a little bit of the Young Bucks. I loved this match. A longtime listener, S. Bubs, pointed out the Fraxium finisher that I'm mixed about is called Catapulta Infernal. Great name, but it's not an actual move name until it's used on television, and it has not been yet. That remains an issue across many WWE brands, but definitely NXT. NXT Championship, Obafemi, Austin Theory, Grayson Waller, 4 stars A-, sticking with that. It's crazy that Shawn Michaels was able to add juice and life to the Theory Waller angle that had been completely missing from the main roster, all in the span of 3 to 4 weeks. And then we went back last week on Raw, I guess really this week on Monday night. And I think they had a segment internationally, but not on the main show. So they're just back into the doldrums. North American Championship, Fallon Henley defending against Stephanie Vaquer, 4 stars A-. Of course, Vaquer won the title here. Henley is a character away from being a legitimate star. She can wrestle. She can cut a promo. She has a great look. But Cowpoke, who is randomly friends with Mean Girls, it just doesn't work, and it never has. What struck me here in the finish was Vaquer having a massive ear-to-ear grin on her face. She was so damn happy as a person to win a WWE title. Visually seeing how much it meant to her just enhanced the impact of the moment for me as a viewer. I stand by everything I said about her on Saturday. She's legitimately one of one, really special talent. Trick Williams, Eddie Thorpe in the strap match, 3.25 stars B, sticking with it. I will reiterate, I'm glad Thorpe won this match. I just didn't like that he won with that pump knee. Heels don't win enough, particularly clean, in WWE these days. Trick needed to be humbled. We saw how it advanced the story on Tuesday, but the finish of the match definitely should have been better. Javon Evans and Ethan Page, 4 stars A-. Nothing I didn't say already. Loved the booking with Page winning. And the new faction debuting. We'll talk more about them in our NXT breakdown. But I maintain the initial attack after the tag team match was utter shit. And the move throwing 2 guys at each other in midair can go very wrong. They should never, ever do that again. The attack on Femi later in the show, much, much better. So that takes us out of our Vengeance Day second look. I told you it'd be quick. We're going to move into NXT from this week. I want to give a shout out off the top to Corey Graves, who was excellent both during Vengeance Day and Tuesday on NXT. He has slid in perfect with Vic Joseph and Booker T, and it's to the point where I actually believe it's absurd he's not in a 3-man booth with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on Raw. We have heard that trio on premium live events, and I don't understand why that's not okay for Monday nights as well. Corey does a great job of seamlessly weaving his way into commentary. He's a total natural. And I do believe NXT has been improved with him alongside Vic and Booker, even if I love them as a duo and I was a little bit concerned about adding a third person. But if I said as much, which I don't remember, then I would have been wrong because Corey's been great alongside those 2 guys. Let's get to the actual content of the show. Obafemi opened the program with a proclamation that he got hit with the best shot of the new faction at Vengeance Day, and he dared them to hit the ring and finish what they started. Instead, out of absolute nowhere, TNA X Division champion Moose showed up in a suit. Moose, for those who do not know, is the third longest reigning TNA World Champion in history.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Moose said he's the one man Oba can't rule. Femi said TNA is Moose's bubble, but he is inevitable in NXT. Moose said a match between them had to happen. Oba said, don't worry, it will. And I said,
but I want you to know this. I prayed for this and it happened.
That was the entire segment. It was honestly all that it needed to be.
No bread, no water, just me.
Booker T was great selling this on commentary. It was a fantastic tease, leaving questions to be answered, such as when, where, and under what circumstances. Subscribers to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover who read our news update 2 weeks ago, you have an idea in terms of what's in store for 2025. This is not going to be a part of that, but I'm just kind of letting you know it's along those lines. I don't have details on all of that quite yet, but this was definitely a hot start to the show. My guess is this main event's roadblock at that MSG Theater, kind of the major show between Vengeance Day and Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania weekend. In terms of Moose, you know, there was a period of time where WWE looked at bringing him in. There's something regarding domestic violence on his record that you can go read about. It's kind of confusing in terms of being a third party and trying to figure out like who was at fault. It's a he said, she said thing where he definitely did something wrong, as if he did it. I mean, extremely wrong. But the woman also might have done something that is wrong as well. It's difficult to parse, and I'm not going to try to do that here, but that has been a problem for WWE in the past. And certainly a number of comments that he's made recently regarding Tessa Blanchard and some other hot ticket items in and around TNA have been problematic as well. So the fact that he's on WWE television is pretty interesting, I will say. But you can read up all that for yourself, kind of draw your own conclusions. But for me, you know, when it comes to something like domestic violence, it's a non-starter, right? And that's why this situation in particular with him, some are saying it's not cut and dried, others are saying it is. I don't know it well enough to speak on it with any extensive opinion, but I was thrown back a little bit to see him on the show reading what I had read previously. So please go and read it for yourself and certainly draw your own conclusions. I just felt it was worth mentioning here at this point in the show. Moose came upon Lexis King backstage. King talked shit about beating his faction mate JDC last week, saying he didn't see TNA wrestlers putting their titles on the line against NXT talent. Moose was about it for next week in King's hometown of Cincinnati. Pretty random, but okay. Lexis King is getting an X Division title match on NXT television. I presume Moose just absolutely destroys him. There was a social media interview with Moose who said he is coming for the NXT title and plans to fight Oba in a few weeks. So there you go, roadblock. Femi also stated on social media that he will be on Impact this Thursday. Unfortunately, I have no way to watch that on television. I'll try to get the details next week. I do know it is airing live, though, from Full Sail University in Orlando, the old home of NXT. And I think they're doing 2 shows back-to-back Thursday and Friday at Full Sail. Wesley backstage talked about the unpredictability of NXT alongside his guys as other groups and tag teams watched from the wings. Ricky Starks walked through, leading the interviewer to brush off Wes and run over to Ricky to get a word about his contract signing. This was a callback to the Grammys this year, which is really fun for those of us who got it in the moment. Starks opened hour 2 of NXT, entering to the regular theme music of NXT. And I saw people like deriding this. Oh my God, Ricky got a terrible theme. First of all, it's the theme of the show. Second of all, it's a Lil Wayne song. It's not Def Rebel bullshit. So like, calm yourself down. People want to jump on Def Rebel at every possible occasion that they're criticizing them for songs they didn't even make. Ava called Ricky the hottest free agent. Ricky said NXT is no longer a dream, but a reality, as it will be when he main events PLEs and wins the title. Ethan Page interrupted, basically saying Ricky was following his playbook. Ricky shot back that the spotlight may not be big enough for both of them. Ethan is flashing insecurity, and Ricky will take NXT to another level. Ricky sarcastically celebrated Page's win over Javon Evans, but saw the dog in Javon, guaranteeing he'd be back at him. Just as Page was about to answer, Evans attacked out of the crowd, lighting the fans on absolute fire. Ricky again went to sign, only for Wes to interrupt. He was angry about being disrespected backstage. Lee demanded that he be Ricky's first opponent, and Ava agreed as Ricky wondered why everyone in NXT is permanently angry, which is pretty funny. He knocked Wes out of the ring and then signed the contract. And as he signed it, Wes is being held back by security, absolutely fuming. It was a beautiful shot. But after he signed it, the camera zoomed in on the name, and the name on the contract did say Ricky Saints. Obviously, we need to start with the name change. Perfectly fine. Is it as good as Starks? No. Will we get used to it in about 2 months? Probably. Ricky is from New Orleans, so going with Saints makes complete sense as an homage. The reason it sounds strange, though, is because it's pluralized. Ricky Saint would have been clean. Ricky Saints sounds a bit, I guess, forced. Like, you wouldn't call a guy Ethan Pages. You'd call him Ethan Page, you know? I checked the cage match, which I'll reiterate, great resource for research, not great for match grades. But Ricky will be the first wrestler ever, at least in their database, with the last name Saints, for whatever that's worth. But again, it's totally fine. Maybe they didn't want confusion with Johnny Saint. I can't imagine there would have been confusion. Anyway, the name plays. I do find it interesting he was unwilling to sign over the trademark to WWE for his run, especially given Jade Cargill, Ethan Page, and others did exactly that, but to each their own. I'm sure he has his reasons. What mattered most was keeping the Ricky part. The segment was a lot of fun, a lot of camp between Ethan and Wes coming out, no one saying his name, including Ricky himself, until the camera zoomed in on the paper. They really played the entire segment well, leading up to the reveal, while continuing one feud and then setting up a debut match. Not an A+, definitely an A. Now it's time to see what this guy can do in NXT. After this segment, Saints, it's going to take some getting used to. Saints came across all the tag teams who were standing around earlier having been laid out, the presumption being it's an unnamed faction that attacked all of them. He said, "Damn, this place is crazy," which was funny to have the new guy come to that realization, but the delivery of this line was weak as hell, like totally inauthentic. Let's just keep Ricky away from the parking lot. Ricky later spoke with Ava, saying he felt like he was going to fit in before he came across Ethan and Wes back to back. Javon then popped in, needing to get held back by security, so Ava changed the match to a tag team bout. Slightly less excited for Ricky's first match to be a somewhat random tag, but I suppose it gives fans a reason to keep watching, waiting for his first singles match, so that plays okay. But it is a legitimate issue here that Javon barely got cleared for the Page match, yet it wasn't unsanctioned. His mouth bled again Saturday night when he got punched in the jaw, but he was not only back attacking him Tuesday, he was given another match next week. Remember that quack doctor? He said Evans could be out 6 to 8 months or for the rest of his career if he was hit wrong. Well, he was hit hard enough that he bled from his mouth again. He doesn't need time off. He's cleared. He can just keep wrestling now. That does not track. The logic of their story has been super, super rough. NXT ended with Ava's office completely destroyed. Robert Stone was laid out dead, and "No one is safe" was spray painted on the wall. Before that, we barely saw the new faction being shoved away in the parking lot. Taking out Stone, I don't know, it doesn't really speak to a threat. I suppose eliminating all those other tag teams earlier does play into that as well. But it was a weak follow-up from a mediocre debut at Vengeance Day. Again, I enjoyed the attack on Femi, but now you're saying if you put this into 3 different parts, 2 of the 3 haven't been great. I'm not with the majority that is already casting dispersions about this stable, calling them Temu Shield or Retribution 2.0. I do wish they didn't wear similar masks as the Shield once did during their debut, but I do wish the booking was just better, top to bottom. But you have to remember, Shield was more compelling, less hidden, and it had a stated intent. Retribution were anarchists in those ridiculous masks with silly names. This is neither of those. They're not interrupting the broadcast or disrupting signals. We don't know any details about this faction, and I do legitimately believe that people are seriously rushing to judgment way too fast. That said, again, I wish it was far more compelling at the onset. I presume that they had Moose and Ricky and Jordan's debut. There was probably limited time on the show, but with next week seemingly a loaded card in Cincinnati, I'm not sure the faction's going to get additional run on that episode either, but they need to. You cannot debut a new faction and give us no meat on the bone to chew on. We have to invest in these people as viewers, a name, a promo, a stated intent, anything. And right now, they're pretty much giving us nothing. Nathan Frazier backstage was furious about the post-match attack from Vengeance Day, while Axiom stressed caution. NQCC came in with Fraxium expecting a title challenge, but instead, they took the camera and challenged the best tag team in the world, the Hardy Boys, to fight them next week in Cincinnati. As Booker T would say, oh yeah, man, I enjoyed the swerve in this segment, particularly the way Tavian Heights commanded the mic and the camera. This dude has legitimate charisma, and I truly believe he's going to have a super high ceiling in the long term. The Hardys later answered on social media. They aired that on NXT. Jeff did his usual name puns and such, and Matt took a little bit more of a serious tilt. Getting the Hardys on NXT in 2025 is absolutely wild. I wonder whether this could lead to them being part of the 2025 Hall of Fame, or if WWE is going to wait for them to sign Legends deals before that happens. I would presume they wait for them to sign the Legends deals, especially with it seeming like Demolition recently signed one and might be the team in the Hall of Fame this year. But this is just one of those NXT is crazy. You have to watch it every week to see what's going to happen type of bookings. It makes the show fun. I do remember Matt Hardy got a brief run in NXT when it initially debuted for Jeff, of course. This will be the first time he ever wrestles in NXT, and it's his first time back in WWE since he literally walked out in the middle of the match at a house show a couple years ago. So pretty interesting that fences have at least been mended for him to come back and do this. Kalani Jordan, Jada Parker, and Carmen Petrovic fought in a number one contendership for the North American Championship. Lani had a new look with her braids blown out, but she still did the whole gymnastics routine. Jordan did a nice springing, twisting, elevated leg drop, and then basically a sling blade with her leg. Jada chopped the shit out of her, only to eat a frog splash while covering Carmen. Jada knocked Lani out of the ring with Hypnotic and hit Carmen with the teardrop. Ashanti the Adonis saved his girlfriend from further damage, and after Parker hit Jordan with teardrop, as she was celebrating with the high steps looking in the other corner, Petrovic slid back in the ring and caught Lani with a jackknife cover to get the upset win. Well-wrestled match, really unique finish, using the relationship to Carmen's benefit, super cool. Lani continues to break out new move after new move, but what's interesting is the moves she's doing now are impactful. It's not just the high-risk gymnastics bullshit that is tough to believe in, and that's massively better than it has been for her. And Jada's improvement is steady as well. Fatal Influence beat the hell out of Carmen 3-on-1 after the bell. Ashanti is standing around watching his girlfriend get her ass kicked like a moron. Thumb up his ass. Okay, yeah, he can't hit the women. He could jump on his girlfriend's body and sacrifice himself and take all the kicks and punches instead of her. That should be a plot point next week. Otherwise, he and whoever planned this were absolutely idiotic. So he's watching her get her ass kicked nonstop, no security help. They go into commercial. She keeps getting her ass kicked. Julia comes out. Stephanie Vaquer come out. They get their asses kicked. And then we come back from commercial. Jordan Grace enters, clears the ring. Grace said she joined NXT to be part of the best women's division, and she doesn't want to waste any time, obviously setting up a 6-woman tag team match. The logic here was pretty thin in terms of the attack and who saved. It was all done just to create a reason for the match, which I feel like could have been accomplished simply with Influence attacking Vaquer backstage, given she beat Fallon Henley for the title just a couple days ago. And then you could do the exact same save and then set up of a match. The fans did get hot for it, though most of it happening during commercial was also weak. So while it's nice that international viewers get a little extra content, I'm not into them getting important parts of the show that we cannot see in full. It's like they're saying to us, you guys need to get VPNs if you actually want to watch Raw, NXT, and SmackDown, which, again, is really frustrating. So we had Julia, Vaquer, and Grace against Influence this main evented. Jordan sent Jasmine Nix into an entirely different dimension early in this match. She also hit a huge triple tope suicida. Booker T said Influence was the most cohesive trio since the Freebirds, which Vic and Corey rightfully clowned him over. Vaquer did her thigh driller, sending everyone into a frenzy. Influence, which actually dressed alike for the first time, I think, ever, actually showed some legit cohesion as a great trio of tags and a solid group of offensive sequences kind of raised the rent on them as a group. Grace tagged back for a double suplex and a muscle buster. She got her head taken off with a pump knee from JC Jane. The Nix kick also landed on Grace for a broken fall. Julia finally got some run late, only to get eliminated into the steel steps, but Vaquer took the heels out, allowing Grace to hit the Juggernaut driver for the win. And when seeing her hit that move, it popped into my brain, oh shit, it's identical to the Penta driver. That doesn't matter these days, but it is true that they now are both debuting in WWE and both using the same finishing move. Julia and Stephanie held their titles up on either side of Jordan who looked at both of them as the segment ended. This was a tremendous showing for Grace in her debut regular match as a full-time WWE superstar. The face trio worked shockingly well together for a first time out. Influence actually flashed on multiple occasions during this, not just offensively, but in really the selling for the other stars in the match. The best part of this match is how everyone was given an opportunity to stand out, including Jasmine. Just like Cora in the other four-way at Vengeance Day, Jasmine was a surprise. I don't want to call her the MVP because Jordan was the MVP, but a surprise feature in this. I'm actually at 3.75 stars B+ for it, all in. I just wish it developed something, but there is plenty of time for that to happen. Eddie Thorpe backstage crowed to Ava about beating Trick Williams, seemingly ready to ask her for another NXT title match. Kale Dixon and Uriah Connors came in, invited Ava to their party. She declined. They invited Thorpe to DJ. He declined, and he shit on the defunct Chase U. The kids stood up for Andre Chase and challenged him on their behalf. Ava questioned whether they actually spoke for him, but they just said yes, and she's like, okay, I guess I'll make the match. Like, she didn't want to check with anyone. She just took their word for it. Someone needs to call out her kayfabe decision-making process because it's horrendous. Chase later was perturbed that they spoke on his behalf, but he got fired up when he heard Chase U was being insulted. Then he got depressed again. So we had Chase against Thorpe. Dixon and Connor showed up in Chase U shirts to get the crowd amped up. Just as Chase went on his signature run, he got stopped dead in his tracks, seeing the guys in Chase U shirts. Then he did Chase U stomps, or sorry, he was going to do Chase U stomps, but that stopped him from doing so. Thorpe capitalized by taking out his knee and hitting Manifest Destiny for the win. Nice match, I would say, only from a storytelling standpoint. Trick Williams interrupted on the Titantron with a serious expression on his face and his braids hanging down over his head as opposed to all the way back. He also had a headband on again. He told Thorpe, if I'm going down, I'm bringing you under with me. Maybe NXT Underground tease? Okay, I would be down for that. Trick taking this serious turn, it actually gives me real hope that he's on the Braun Breaker plan, where he's getting at least 6-9 months more in NXT, diversifying his character, his persona, his in-ring skill, all of that before getting called up. As I've said numerous times, he is not ready for prime time, despite the fact that he connects with fans. You got to be the total package to make it on the main roster. You don't want to call up Trick and not have it work out. You have to give him the best possible chance to become a star. And the best possible way to do that is for him to get more seasoning in NXT. Sol Ruca and Zarya fought the Meta Girls. There was a fun team bonding TikTok posted over the weekend for the Faces, which they came out to Zarya's entrance with Ruca dressing less beachy and actually a bit darker. Zarya and Lash Legend did a press slam contest. Zarya speared Lash. Sol took her down with a Hurricanrana. Zarya speared the life out of Jakara Jackson's body, hit the F5, and then tagged in Ruca for Soul Snatcher and the win. They are mighty impressive as a team. It felt like this finish was a bit too much to take down Jakara Jackson. Now, if this was to beat Lash, okay, I am down for that. But the spear alone would have been enough to pin Jakara. Then they do an F5. Okay, she's definitely dead. And then they still had to do the Soul Snatcher. It's like, you're just annihilating this woman. She's dust at this point. But they did look damn good together. I can definitely see them challenging for the titles sooner than later. All 3 women's matches on this show banged. The division is straight up loaded to the gills. It is wild, and I'd love to see it.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
Didn't necessarily love Stacks against Shawn Spears. Stacks backstage basically said he was stepping up for the D'Angelo family. Both were out with their crews. No Tony D'Angelo. Spears hit a draping DDT from the top rope. Stacks came back with a great code breaker over the ropes, but he injured his back on an offensive move. Spears capitalized, hitting Brainbuster over the knee and C4 for the clean win. Fine match, expected winner. That's it. Really nothing to write home about. This North American title feud for the men, Spears and D'Angelo, it is just not compelling whatsoever. In fact, they've actually figured out a way to make the men's main event division a little compelling by, infusing some new talent. But the mid card is now just, it feels vacant. So they got to figure that out. NXT as a whole, extremely strong show coming out of Vengeance Day. I mean, think about it. You had the Ricky Saints contract signing, Jordan Grace really making her full-time debut, the surprise of Moose, the Hardy Boys surprise, a couple really good women's matches. I mean, the 2 hours of NXT just flies by every Tuesday, and it's cool seeing more and more people enjoying it. I got some DMs over the weekend, people who watched Vengeance Day and even one person who went to Vengeance Day, who was only going to go to the SmackDown in Washington, D.C., but decided to go to Vengeance Day as well because they listened to the Ultimate Preview and they've started watching NXT more. And I love that. I should have really saved that Montez Ford drop for that. But I love that you guys are listening to this, find it compelling enough. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to check out that product because I do believe more so than Raw, more so than SmackDown, more so than AEW Dynamite, it's the easiest wrestling show to watch on a weekly basis. And they once again proved that on Tuesday night. Moving over to AEW, we need to start with AEW Grand Slam Collision Australia. We're going to cover that in its totality. Then we're going to discuss AEW Dynamite separately. So we're going to do this different than normal weeks where we kind of jam Dynamite and Collision together. First, a couple notes before we give you the match-by-match breakdown for Grand Slam Australia. Going back to the smaller ring topic, I feel like it just would have been far less noticeable if not for the cavernous ringside area. I wonder if that's like an Australian regulation or whatever, because you'd think AEW would have wanted to add another row or two of seats up front and sell them at a higher cost. So it was just interesting the way the whole thing was set up. The ring apron looked cool, but really it was the only part of the set that was unique. Fans were immense the entire show. Exactly what you want from an international crowd. Made it feel like a mini pay-per-view. The way the ring was mic'd up was so much better than usual. I didn't hear the same thing Wednesday night on Dynamite, but I don't know what the process is to mic up a ring. Take what they did at Grand Slam and put that on every AEW show. The product is going to sound a lot better. So we'll start with the main event. Women's Championship, Mariah May against Toni Storm. Video package for this match was actually disappointing, just given how much material existed, but it was the rightful main event. Nice response for Toni. Not as loud as I would have expected, but the crowd did get loud for her throughout the match, which was by far more important. She wore her normal gear, but Australian blue, which is a nice touch. Storm hit Mayday decently early for a near fall. She followed with 3 hip attacks and Storm 0 for a false finish. Mariah came back with 2 Maydays. Storm powerbombed her out of the corner and hit a Storm 0 for a rollout. May then hit Storm 0 inside with no cover, and then Storm won with a small package to regain the women's title. Interesting match in that it was meant to feel like an epic, given there were 6 finishers hit, but it was not epic. Toni completely no-selling the last one, and then moving into a small package was like a period instead of an exclamation point. An extremely odd decision to finish the match in that way. It was fine across the board. It just never felt special. And given this was a blood feud, I expected there would be much greater intensity between them. The match just felt like a title match, and it lacked for me. 3.5 stars and a B. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay fought Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. This opened the show. Don Callis interfered to prevent Hidden Blade. The referee didn't care. Takeshita hit a double German suplex before Fletcher ate a sky twister ringside from Ospreay. Omega kicked out of a blue thunderbomb, which should have drawn a bigger reaction given it's Takeshita's finisher. Omega he set up for an avalanche one-winged angel, but Ospreay took Takeshita out of it with a flying Oz cutter, which was a great spot. He then leveled Fletcher with a hidden blade and directed Omega to a V-trigger on Takeshita. The heels simultaneously countered the face's finishers into tombstone pile drivers. Ospreay covered Omega at one point to save him. These guys didn't even like each other weeks ago. Meanwhile, Ashante can't give the same love to Carmen as Ospreay is giving to Omega. Anyway, Takeshita countered Hidden Blade with a lariat. Omega dropped him off the ropes onto the top turnbuckle before Ospreay did the Tope Con Hero over the ring post. Then the faces won with what was the single best moment of the entire match. I would say the entire show. A flying Hidden Blade Catalyst, one-winged angel. Tremendous match to start a special show. Omega and Ospreay work like they've been tagging for years. No surprise, they're 2 of the best wrestlers in the entire world. Definitely the right winners. Definitely the right match to start Grand Slam. There were some extended formulaic parts, which surprised me just because of the high skill level of all 4 guys. I presume they purposefully did not want to go all out because they were the opener and it did not involve a title. This is a borderline match. 4.25 stars, 4.5 stars. It's an A, and it was a lot of fun. Later backstage, Omega challenged Takeshita for his title at Revolution. Ospreay then went off about beating Fletcher in his own country. He challenged for his steel cage match at Revolution as well. Both perfect bookings for a pay-per-view. Could definitely see Omega winning the title, facing Kazuchika Okada in a champion versus champion match at All In. That makes way too much sense. Ospreay doing crazy shit off the top of the cage might wind up making some of the best highlights of the entire year, so I am completely here for both of these. TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné defending against Harley Cameron. Second on the card, Harley grabbed the puppet early, and I swear that thing got a bigger response than Mercedes did on her entrance. She did get light chance later. Monet stomped the puppet. Later, Cameron respawned outside with her head and the puppet both peeking over the ring apron, which got a legitimate laugh out of me. She had a Canadian Destroyer, avoided Monet Maker. A weak 619 followed before she missed a Swanton Bomb, with Mercedes landing Monet Maker coming back for the win and retention. We all obviously wanted Harley to win the title. I do believe it easily could have been accomplished with a flip back on Dynamite, but I'm not angry at the decision. Mercedes is a top 2 woman in the entire company. She's on a 270-day reign at this point. AEW may be booking her to eclipse Jade Cargill in the record books. This was Harley's best match yet. Mercedes deserves a ton of credit for making that happen. Cameron's going to stay hot coming out of this, but it'll be interesting to see how she's booked going forward. Not having her on Dynamite, probably the wrong decision, but maybe she stayed in Australia. And if that's the case, then that's fine. She's home, probably with family and friends. 3.25 stars and a B. Continental Championship, Okada against Buddy Matthews. They flipped birds at each other a bunch of times, so Okada took his title to leave, and Buddy called him a wanker, instead of a bitch. Okay. Okada avoided a stomp, hitting Rainmaker for a false finish. Quite a waste of the first Rainmaker kickout in AEW history for this match. And you have Omega coming up. I don't understand that at all. Matthews caught him with the stomp for a kickout, and Murphy's Law with Okada's foot touching the rope on the cover. Then he did a superplex into a jackhammer, kind of an ode to the Seth Rollins combination. He followed with Prism Trap for his wife, Rhea Ripley, but Okada delivered a mule kick behind the referee's back, adding a second Rainmaker for the win. Some nice hope spots for Buddy. I love seeing Murphy's Law again. Interesting how much he does for others between the stomp, which Jon Moxley also uses for Rollins, the superplex combo, now the Prism Trap. It's like half of his repertoire is respecting other people. This was a boring and repetitive finish, even if Okada winning was the right decision, and the match overall was entertaining. 3.75 stars B+. Adam Copeland and Jay White fought the Death Riders in a Brisbane brawl. The crowd sang Metalingus after the music stopped, which was a phenomenal moment for Copeland, similar to what happened with Randy Orton last year. Legitimately emotional. Copeland, who you'll remember broke both of his ankles jumping off of a cage, jumped off a vom and landed on his feet. Then he took a powerbomb through a table ringside. White got swung into a trash can. Cope ate a paradigm shift. White avoided Claudio Castagnoli into a chair and hit Blade Runner, only for Wheeler Yuta to interfere with a belt and eat Blade Runner himself. Mox then stomped White, but took a shot between the wickets. Copeland speared Claudio through a table, speared Mox normally, and used a barbed wire chair on his back. Yuta stopped a concerto. Marina Shafir lightly touched him in the face with the briefcase. Copeland kicked out of Claudio's finisher, and then Mox caught him in the Bulldog choke, with Yuta holding White back, and Claudio just sitting there. And the referee called a stoppage. Mox locked in the choke again after the bell. The heels taunted him, and no one saved, because none of the other baby faces give a single shit about the Death Riders. None of the women care. Hell, Pac doesn't even care. The dude is barely around. As per usual, the fans were hot during the match, disappointed by the finish, and utterly silent in the post-match. It's literally the same thing over and over.
It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like missionary position every single night.
Immensely paint by numbers, both as a hardcore match and as a Death Riders match. The best way to describe it was lame. I cannot even justify the booking of Mox over Cope when they're fighting for the title in a few weeks. Unless Cope is actually going to win the championship, and then maybe Christian Cage immediately cashes in and they just get out of Mox having the title. But if AEW does that, then all the prior booking becomes nonsensical. And yet it would improve the product. So we're just going to have to see what happens. This was an odd decision when White over Claudio or Cope over Claudio could have easily been accomplished with a New Zealander or a babyface getting the dub. 3 stars, B-. So this was extremely high quality overall for something that wound up on TV, Grand Slam Australia. Not a single down moment outside of the Death Riders finish, but the rest of the show was fire. I equate it to that first Saturday night's main event, except this was heavier on the wrestling, and that was heavier on the spectacle and the story. The crowd leveled this up just like international crowds have for WWE recently. Definitely exceeded my expectation grade of a B+, but there weren't enough important matches on the card or enough of them at a top level to be that much higher. I mean, I only had one match in the A range at all. So I'm going to say 90 A-, which I actually think is pretty generous for a quick 2-hour show with a bunch of commercial breaks. But Grand Slam Australia was definitely a fun watch. So let's move over and talk about Dynamite. It was tough to judge the storyline relevance for Dynamite this week because there were 4 matches on the show. 2 were definitely relevant. The other 2 were a random number 1 contendership and a match built from a shoulder brushing last week, and it was only announced 8 hours before Dynamite began. But I would say there was not a single match this week with 0 relevance, so I suppose that's a positive, given Collision was entirely a special event. Hangman Page and MJF opened Dynamite with security around the ring for a confrontation. Max wore a pinstripe suit with MJF as the pinstripes, literally the letters. AEW zoomed in to make sure that we saw it. He put himself over, running down his AEW success in history. Hangman suggested it was meaningless because he didn't win over the fans. MJF basically played the IWC, calling Page the main character who did nothing wrong, despite all of his transgressions. Hangman snapped when MJF talked about him retiring Christopher Daniels, which felt incredibly forced. Page called him an opportunist, coward, and cheater, saying the crowd cheers for Hangman because he tells the truth to the fans, even when he lies to others. MJF mocked him, saying it doesn't matter how one wins, and Hangman was the chosen one from the start. MJF had to earn everything. It ended with MJF asking how Hangman was better than him, to which Page replied, "I'm real." MJF spat on him, then he ran away with security stopping Hangman. He beat them up. Then CD came out to prop Page up off the mic, saying he knows himself, or something like that. So this was a good promo segment. I feel that's the appropriate adjective to use. MJF continues to level up. He had a few rough months upon returning, but he's found his mojo again. There was a clear and concerted effort, though, for this to be seen as deep, but it came across to this viewer as surface level. In other words, they said a lot of stuff, and all of it contextually was of high quality, but they were unable to generate any emotional connection from me. Maybe it was the part about CD. Maybe it was each of them just telling us stuff we already knew about the other, but acting as if what they were saying were revelations. I just did not get hype from it. I also felt the line should have been, "I'm a better man than you," not "I'm real." So like, how are you better than me? I'm a better man than you are. I think that would have hit harder. Perhaps others were moved by this. I can only provide my honest reaction in that this felt every bit like a 15 to 20 minute promo segment to open a show. You know what I'm kind of just realizing might have been one of my issues? Hangman never turned face, just like he never turned heel. The fans just decided to cheer him again, and they decided they like the person he's feuding with less. Same thing happened with Swerve Strickland. Fans were into Swerve, so Hangman got booed. So they turned on him. Page did turn from heel to tweener, but his supposed babyface move was killing CD, beating him up after the bell, and then just standing in MJF's face backstage. He's not been redeemed in any way. And perhaps that's why it failed to connect for me, because you're just telling me I'm supposed to like and cheer this guy now, but he hasn't actually done anything where he deserves to be liked and cheered, except for the fact that we hate MJF more. And to me, that's a flaw. Toni Storm hit the ring under a spotlight saying, "This tramp is your new champ," and she called Mariah May a sick bitch, who she railed with her big package. Then she plugged Queen of the Ring, a film she's legitimately starring in, and she said she wants to face the best women in the world. The visual presentation of this was an A+. Tony's innuendos were on point. They have become over the top a little bit for me personally. They seem a little forced, but I know critically they're good. I'd have liked some more meat on the bone here, but at least AEW learned their lesson and didn't completely leave her off the show. Only getting a couple minutes and not saying much or getting confronted by anyone, that's a disappointment. But it was one of the best parts of Dynamite. Willow Nightingale backstage expressed anger that Jon Moxley interrupted her during her 1 minute of promo time last week. She also mentioned the name Marina Shafir, who then attacked and completely laid this girl out. So Willow, who gave a shit about helping conglomeration in this feud for like 2 weeks, 4 months ago, completely stopped caring. No other women in the company have given a single shit. But now she's fired up and hates them again because Mox cut off her promo last week.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
Mox and Death Riders stormed to the ring saying he owns AEW and will finish the job, exploding Adam Copeland's head at Revolution. Jay White answered with Pac showing up behind him. Hey, he came back to work. Then Copeland ran in from behind, making it 2-on-4, not counting Shafir, so 2-on-4.5. Despite that, the faces easily dispatched the heels until Copeland wasted time grabbing Spike, and that allowed Mox to run away. Copeland grabbed a mic, saying AEW fans belong to him, Mox is a coward, and he'll take out the Riders one by one. So the end was a strong-ass promo from Cope to conclude a repetitive ass segment. Fans singing his theme music after it ends is now apparently going to be a thing. Just moving from Judas to Metalingus. But I want you to listen to something that I noticed immediately when Mox was cutting his promo on Wednesday night.
Which means this is my microphone. That's my camera. This is my ring. This is my building. You're sitting in my damn seats.
Does that sound familiar to you?
You ain't got a chance. This is my show. This is my ring. This cameraman right here, this is my cameraman. These people, these are all my people because they acknowledge me. These two right here, they work for me. This commentary team is mine because they brag and talk about me the whole time. That sign right there, it's mine.
And there's also this.
I'm tired of being humble. I'm tired of letting people think they got a chance. The tribal chief is head and shoulders above everybody. This is my show. This is my camera. I love it all.
Now, I'm going to assume that was an homage for Mox and not just straight swagger jacking, but I mean, it was almost identical, especially to the first one that I played from Roman Reigns. So just wanted to point that out. Mercedes Moné backstage didn't want any surprises, repeated her 2 catchphrases. It was then revealed that Momo Watanabe, who was at Grand Slam Australia, decided to challenge Mercedes for the TBS title, given she was the winner of that International Women's Cup a few months ago. Moné demanded she say it to her face. Now, look, Momo is one of the best young women's wrestlers in the entire world, so this is going to be a hell of a match, but the crowd literally had zero reaction to it because they do not know who she is. And there's no shame in not knowing her, but it made for a womp-womp segment, and it's another example of AEW matchmaking and not actually booking and storytelling. I said a couple months ago she won it in January. That's my fault. Undisputed Kingdom, still minus Kingdom, cut a promo backstage. Roderick Strong said Orange Cassidy being friends with Kyle O'Reilly wouldn't stop him. O'Reilly said the conglomeration isn't a stable, but a lifestyle, except it was a stable. And then it just kind of dissipated with Kyle moving over to another stable that's become a group because 2 of its members haven't been with the others on TV in months. This preceded a number 1 contendership for the international title between these guys, neither of whom has recently been winning singles matches to earn such an opportunity. Though obviously Orange is the most notable international champion to date. The booking is the winner faces Konosuke Takeshita, with the winner of that facing Kenny Omega. So it's almost like Omega is the champion who has a bye and is waiting for a challenger, instead of the winner fighting Omega for the opportunity to fight Takeshita. Pretty odd. Cassidy fought Strong. Orange hugged Kyle literally during the match, which angered Adam Cole. Strong then went outside and hugged both of them, so Orange went outside and hugged Kyle again. Jeez. Cassidy hit Beach Break and kept avoiding Stronghold, eating a backbreaker over the knee. Orange countered End of Heartache into Stundog Millionaire and hit Orange Punch for the 1-2-3. Don Callis interrupted a post-match interview, talking shit, leading to Takeshita and Mark Davis attacking 2-on-1. Callis kicked him thrice, and then Omega saved. This was Cassidy's first time on TV in 6 weeks, more than 6 weeks. Just showed up and wrestled. No promo, nothing about Death Riders or Hangman or anything like that. Back to wearing his washed blue jeans. Just a dude back in the gimmick, earning a title opportunity. That said, doing the Omega Orange team up after we had the Omega Osprey team up kind of feels like they might be doing an Avengers Assemble type of thing when it comes to the Death Riders. You have these guys team up, they take out Don Callis' family, and they graduate for Death Riders. Osprey would be the 3rd piece, Darby Allin presumably the 4th. That'd be quite a lineup, though, just to combat like Wheeler Yuta. You know what I mean? Ricochet hit the ring, getting some cheap heat.
Well, they're really bad guys now because they cut down the city sports team. That's what you do when you're a bad guy.
Yeah, all your sports teams, they're all failures.
He was dressed exactly like Solo Sikoa in a white turtleneck with a huge chain. Seriously, identical. Ricochet did successfully battle through boos and chants, but the material was weak as hell. He said baby like 20 times, saying his sights were set on championships. Prince Nana entered by himself, angry that Ricochet was wearing his robe, saying only those with honor get to wear it. His point being, if Ricochet was everything he claims to be, he'd just give it back to him. Ricochet did the laugh in his face, and that was it. Nana's promo was really good. Ricochet technically continues to do his best character work. The last couple of segments, this and the burger one, were really forced, and I see people saying, oh, wow, he's a great promo. He's had better promo moments in AEW. There is zero doubt about that. I'm not in any way calling him a great or good promo, at least not yet. Chris Jericho backstage said AEW would not exist without him, yet he gets disrespected at every turn. He decided to put the ROH title up against Bandito on Collision, who apparently pinned him during an ROH show in Australia. Jericho also said people are getting too comfortable around him. It's probably his best promo in at least a year, if not longer. Powerhouse Hobbs fought Big Bill in a street fight.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Hobbs bladed and got chokeslammed into the steel steps. Brian Keith came out to help Bill set up like 4 different spots during commercial. Rather than capitalize, Bill allowed Hobbs to get back to his feet and kill him with a trash can. Hobbs choked through Keith into a leaning table and hit Bill with a backpack of bricks, except he dumped out the bricks and they just kind of like bounced because they were foam. Unforced error. There was another bad spot where Hobbs threw Bill's head into the steel steps like 10 times, but he was visibly just smacking them with his arms. His head was like 8 inches away from the steel. He also bladed. The key spot was an almighty spinebuster off the steel steps, placed atop the stage through a barbed wire table, except Bill didn't jump. So he just got shoved backwards and he only hit one of the 2 tables. He lost via 10 count. Fans forced a lot of meat chants during this, and I'm not saying it wasn't.
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
But I was actually disappointed from the standpoint that I wanted to see them beat the ever-loving shit out of each other physically, and instead it was almost all weapons. It was still a notable win for Hobbs. The match left a lot to be desired. The final few parts being successively weak did not help. This would be like 2.5 star C if I was grading it, and that might even be a tad generous. We had Chris Statlander against Megan Bayne. This marked 4 segments in a row involving a woman on Dynamite, which was a massive improvement, even if only one of them developed a story, and that one involved men. Now, that said,
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
but this definitely felt like a match that should have been built and promoted as opposed to teased last week and announced with 8 hours until the show. Bayne no-sold a move on the ring apron, and then she did a suplex over the ropes. Penelope Ford pushed Stat off the ropes, allowing Bayne to hit the F5 and get the win. Ford attacked after the bell because it's AEW. Then she just stopped. She was waiting for Thunder Rosa's cue. She came in with a chair, raised it in the air. Ford stood in front of Bayne. Thunder didn't swing. Then she raised it again. Bayne stood in front of Ford. She still didn't swing. Then Ford tried to steal it from her. Thunder won the tug of war. Then the heels took one step over the ropes outside, and Thunder threw the chair on the ground at them. So at that point, you had 2 heels with a weapon, and they just walked away, allowing Rosa to just strut around the ring. Someone must have forgotten what the hell they were supposed to do in the post-match, because that was some of the most ridiculous shit I have ever seen in a professional wrestling ring. The face saves with the chair to clear the ring. If the heels don't move, then swing and hit them. That's why you're there. Otherwise, you're scared and pathetic. Rosa came off looking awful here. The match was okay. It left a lot to be desired given the quality of both wrestlers, but clearly it was just a first meeting. This obviously confirmed Bayne and Ford are working together, which is fine in theory, as long as they give us a reason, a story, anything. I'll give the benefit of the doubt that will happen, but let's see if it actually does. But in terms of the Thunder Rosa part of this entire deal,
Are you fucking kidding me?
the Ops fought the Patriarchy. Nice entrance for the now official group. I like the logo, even if I believe the name is kind of odd for them. They should sell some decent merch with that. Hook locked Kip Sabian in Red Rum for the submission win. Christian refused to save him because he was scared by Samoa Joe. Super short match. Is this feud now over? Like, is this actually the end of it? Fingers crossed, I hope so. Murder Machines backstage said they will confront Hurt Syndicate at Collision because they want the tag team titles. Now, they are 4-0 in AEW as a team, but their only notable win is Top Flight a month ago, which was the last time they fought 2-on-2 at all. Weak-ass challengers, but a good-looking team for Syndicate to get a win over, at least I suppose. Max Caster backstage continued holding his trademark and promised his open challenge would remain ongoing, with him finally winning his first match on Saturday. What I'm starting to wonder is, what is the payoff with this? Like, why should I actually care? Caster's kind of entertaining with it, but why do I care, and what's it going to mean? I hope it's something decent. Dynamite as a whole, it looked to be extremely strong on paper coming in. It did not really deliver to my expectation like the last 2 weeks did. Those completely exceeded my expectations, but nevertheless, an entertaining show from AEW on Wednesday night, just not as entertaining as I thought it was going to be. So that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. A reminder that we will be back on Tuesday with your WWE Elimination Chamber Ultimate Preview. We also had a loaded WWE episode from this week. It's in the podcast feed. If you have not listened to that already, make sure that you do. And then, of course, same bat time, same bat channel. We will be back 1 week from now with your next NXT and AEW show. Please remember, here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. We're at 483. We want to get to 500 by WrestleMania 41. Please do it. We would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. $5 a month. That's it. $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Audio of every episode available on there. Video posts as well. YouTube at Getting Overcast. And please follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. Already have a handful that we're going to be using on Tuesday's episode. So send them in, Jerome's regular questions about what's happening weekly in WWE, NXT, and AEW. Also submissions for The Last Word or topics you just want us to discuss on the program. Again, both social media accounts at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. You can email us, gettingoverpod@gmail.com. That is it for today. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.